My dear Junior 4 students, welcome back to our lovely story, Round the World in 80 Days. Let's start together reading the story, discussing the events, and see what will happen while we're reading. This is the cover as we discussed last time. And if you look here at the contents, this is the first page and it shows you that our story is consisting of 12 chapters. Okay? Each chapter has a title. So we have Phileas Fogg and Passepartout, The Bet, Detective Fix, India, Auda, Calcutta, Hong Kong, to Japan, to San Francisco, across Africa, across the Atlantic, and the end of the journey. Those are the titles of our 12 chapters. Let's open our story on page 1. Okay, and this is chapter 1, and our chapter 1 is called Phileas Fogg and Passepartout. Okay, I want to forget the name Passepartout. I'll call you Passepartout, said Phileas Fogg. Let's listen together to the chapter, and while we're listening, I will stop the audio, ask you some questions. So I want you to concentrate and try to understand while we're reading so that you can answer my questions. Okay?
Chapter 1. Phileas Fogg and Passepartout. I want to forget the name Passepartout. I'll call you Passepartout, said Phileas Fogg.
In 1872, the Reform Club in London's Pall Mall was a club for men only. Phileas Fogg went to the Reform Club every day. He left his house at 7 Savile Row at 11:30 in the morning and walked to the club. He had his lunch and his dinner there. He read the papers at the club, and he played cards. He left late in the evening and walked back to Savile Row. He went to bed at midnight.
Okay, let's stop here. Can you see the schedule that Mr. Phileas Fogg has for himself? He has a fixed time for everything. So he goes to the Reform Club. He lives on the 7 Savile Row, 11:30 in the morning. He goes to the club. He has his lunch and his dinner there. There also he reads the newspaper, and he plays cards with his friends. And he left late in the evening, and he goes back to where he lived in Savile Row, and then he goes to bed exactly at midnight. So this is his everyday routine, okay, and he never changes his routine. Let's complete.
Phileas Fogg was a cold man. He didn't talk much, and nobody knew much about him. But everything in his life had to be right. His washing water had to be at 31 degrees centigrade. Not 30 degrees centigrade, and not 32 degrees centigrade. At 9:37 on the morning of the 2nd of October, 1872, his servant, James Forster, brought him water at 30 degrees centigrade, not 31 degrees centigrade. So this servant had to go. Phileas Fogg sat at home in his Savile Row house. He waited for his new servant.
Okay, so what happened here? He's describing the character of Mr. Phileas Fogg. Mr. Phileas Fogg is a very cold man, as we said before. We said that he hardly shows any feelings, he doesn't talk much, and nobody knows a lot of information about him. Everything in his life had to be right, so he doesn't like mistakes. His washing water means the water that he used to take a bath should be always at the temperature of 31 degrees. He had a servant, someone who helped him at home and stays with him to cook and clean and stuff. And this servant, he was called James Forster. What did he do one day? He brought his water at the degree of only 30. So what happened? Mr. Phileas Fogg asked him to leave. He fired him. He is no longer working with Mr. Phileas Fogg because of this mistake. So now, after he left, Mr. Phileas Fogg is waiting at his house, and a new servant is going to come, and he is waiting for this servant. Okay, I want you now to open. If you look down here before you open, at the bottom of page 1, you can see the vocabulary, the new words that you might not understand easily at the story. The club, of course, you know, this is the building where you can meet a lot of friends that you have common things to do together. And as we said, the servant, this is someone who lives and works at your house for cleaning and arranging your stuff and cooking and stuff like this. Now I want you to open page 2. Okay, and I can see here in the picture 2 people talking, Mr. Phileas Fogg, and I think this is the new servant. Let's read together and listen to the audio, and we are also going to discuss some questions.
The new servant came. He was about 30 years old. "You are French," said Phileas Fogg. "And your name is John?" "No," said the new servant. "My name is Jean, Mr. Fogg. They call me Jean Passepartout, because in French, a passepartout can open every door. When things are bad, I can always get out. I can get out of anything." "Tell me about your work," said Phileas Fogg.
Okay, let's complete listening.
"I am a good man, and I can do a lot of different jobs," said Jean Passepartout. "I was a fireman in Paris, and look!" Passepartout did a high jump, then put his left leg and then his right leg on his head. He was a strong man. "But I left France in 1867, said Passepartout, "and I came to England. I want to be a servant. I am looking for a quiet life. People say that you are the quietest man in Britain, so I want to work for you. I want to live quietly now. I want to forget the name Passepartout." "I'll call you Passepartout," said Phileas Fogg. "What time is it?"
Okay, let's stop here, guys, and see what happened. When Mr. Phileas Fogg met Passepartout, okay, he told him about the meaning of his name and why he was called Passepartout when he was living in France. Because he told him the word Passepartout means that he can open every door, means he can get out of any problem, he can solve any trouble. And this is why they call him Passepartout. Mr. Phileas Fogg told him, "What about your work?" He told him that he worked in different jobs. He was a fireman, and he acted some acrobatic movements, like the one that are done in a circus or something, and that shows that he's a very strong man. And he said that he left London and he came to England because he wanted to be a servant, and he was looking for a quiet life, not a life that has a lot of trouble and a lot of problems. No, he wanted to live a quiet life, a nice life, a calm life. And this is why he came here, and they told him that Mr. Phileas Fogg is the quietest man in Britain. This is why he wanted to work for Mr. Phileas Fogg. He told him that, "I want to work for you. I want to live quietly now. I want to forget the name Passepartout." Mean that I want to forget the name means that he wants to get away of trouble and get away from the problems and whatever he used to have in his old life. Mr. Phileas Fogg told him that I will call you Passepartout. I will keep the same name that they used to call you before. And he was asking him about the time. What time is it? So why do you guess he's going to ask him about the time? Let's listen together and see.
Passepartout pulled out a big watch and looked at it. "It is 11:29, Mr. Fogg," he said. "All right. From now, 11:29, on the 2nd of October, 1872, you are my servant."
Okay, now we are on page 3, and you can see how precise is Mr. Phileas Fogg. He said once he got to know Passepartout and he asked him what time, he told him it's 11:29. So he told him, from now, 11:29, on the 2nd of October, on the year 1872, you are my servant. So it's like showing the exact date with the exact time when Jean Passepartout started working for Mr. Phileas Fogg. This is how precise is Mr. Phileas Fogg. Okay, let's complete listening.
With those words, Phileas Fogg put on his hat and went out. There was nobody in the house then, only Passepartout. "Here I am," the Frenchman thought. "But what do I do?" He went into every room in the house. He found his room, and in it there was a timetable. Everything was there, starting from 8 o'clock. Phileas Fogg got up at that time. 8:23, bring tea. 9:37, bring washing water, 31 degrees centigrade. 11:30, PF goes to the Reform Club. Then, from 11:30 in the morning to midnight, everything was on the timetable. Mr. Fogg always went to bed at midnight. Passepartout smiled. "This is right for me," he thought. "Mr. Fogg is the man for me."
Okay, so here, once Mr. Phileas Fogg told Jean Passepartout that he's now his servant, he left the room. He left Jean Passepartout at home, and he went to the Reform Club as his normal schedule. So Jean Passepartout just take a walk throughout the house, looking at the rooms, get to know the house better. And once he entered his room, once Passepartout entered his room, he found a timetable hanged on the wall. Okay, what's the meaning of a timetable? Means things that you have to do during the day and the time when you do these things. So it's like a schedule. And it was wrote on the schedule that Mr. Phileas Fogg wakes up at 8. At 8:23, Passepartout has to get him his tea. At 9:37, Passepartout has to prepare the water for Mr. Phileas Fogg to have a shower, and the water should be 31 degrees. 11:30, Mr. Phileas Fogg goes to the Reform Club to enjoy his time with his friends, and the list goes on from 11:30 until midnight, the time that Mr. Phileas Fogg goes back to sleep. So everything is written, everything is scheduled, it has a certain time. So Passepartout was he was very happy, because this is the kind of silent and enjoyable life that he wants to enjoy after this. It's very quiet, there are 13 things to be done, he knows exactly what he should do. So this is the kind of life that he really enjoys. Okay, we are now done with chapter 1. Also at the bottom of page 3 you have the meaning of the timetable. Okay, let's open page 4, and this is the beginning of chapter 2. Our chapter 2 is called The Bet, and we explained before that the bet, this is a challenge that you have between people, and this challenge is done in return for money. The winner of the challenge will get money from the rest of the group who challenged him, in case he won. So they are going to pay for him the money because he is the winner, and if he loses the challenge, he is going to pay money to the people who challenged who challenged him. Okay, so the bet here is between who and who. We're going to read together and discuss it. I want you now to listen, and we are going also to pause and discuss it together.
Chapter 2. The Bet. We are leaving in 10 minutes for Dover and Calais, said Phileas Fogg. We are going round the world.
It was 6:10 in the evening at the Reform Club. Phileas Fogg was in the card room. He was at a card table with the same 5 men as yesterday, and the day before, and the day before that. Phileas Fogg and the 5 men didn't usually talk when they played cards. But this evening, before the game started, the men talked about a newspaper story. A thief walked into the Bank of England and took £55,000. Then he walked out again. One of the men at the card table, Ralph, had a very good job at the Bank of England. "They'll catch the man," Ralph said. "The best detectives are at every port. They know that the man is tall. He wears expensive clothes. They'll find him." "Oh, I don't know," said Stuart, another man at the table. "The world is a very big place."
Okay, so here we can see that Mr. Phileas Fogg is at the Reform Club with his friends as usual, and they were sitting in the card room playing cards together. And usually when they sit to play cards, they are all silent. They just enjoy the game. But this night, they weren't silent. They were discussing a very interesting story or accident that happened, which is the robbery of the Bank of England. Someone went into the bank and he stole £55,000. And they were discussing about this thief who took the money. And one of Mr. Phileas Fogg's friends, his name is Ralph, he works in the bank, and he was saying that the detectives, means the people who are working in the police station, they are going after this thief, and they are looking for him in every port. You know what's the meaning of port? Port, this is the place where you can see a lot of ships that are waiting for other people to go on, and they can travel from one place to another. So the port, this is like the parking for the ships. Okay, we have the parking for cars, while the place where they park the ship, we call it a port. Okay, you can also see here down, as I told you, thief, of course, this is the one who takes things from a place that doesn't belong to him. And the port, this is the place by the sea where ships arrive and leave from there. Okay, what happened is that they said that the one who stole the bank, he was wearing expensive clothes. He doesn't seem like a normal thief. No, he looked like a gentleman. He was dressed in a very nice way, and they are going to find him. Another one of the friends called Mr. Stewart, he said, "I don't know, because the world is a very big place. Maybe he can go anywhere and hide, and no one can find this thief ever." Let's look at page 5, okay, and listen together, and we will discuss after this.
"It was a big place," said Phileas Fogg. "What do you mean, was? Is it smaller now?" said Stuart. "Yes," said Ralph. "I think Mr. Fogg is right. You can go round the world more quickly now." "All right," said Stuart. "You can go round the world in about 3 months. But that doesn't mean—" "Not 3 months," said Phileas Fogg. 80 days. "Fogg's right," said Ralph. "The Rohtal to Allahabad railway in India is open now. Look, Today's Times has a timetable for a journey round the world. And he showed them on the centre page of the paper. London to Suez, railway and ship, 7 days. Suez to Bombay, ship, 13 days. Bombay to Calcutta, railway, 3 days. Calcutta to Hong Kong, ship, 13 days. Hong Kong to Yokohama, ship, 6 days. Yokohama to San Francisco, ship, 22 days. San Francisco to New York, railway, 7 days. New York to London, ship and railway, 9 days. 80 days. Yes, said Stuart. 80 days. It's all right on paper, but a lot of things can happen in 80 days. They can stop you on the way. No, they can't, Mr. Stuart, said Phileas Fogg. Well, why don't you try, Mr. Fogg? Go round the world in 80 days, said Phileas Fogg. All right. I have £20,000 in Baring's Bank. I'll bet all of it. £20,000, cried Ralph. Something will happen on the journey, and you'll lose all your money.
Okay, so what happened here in this part is that they were talking about the thief, and Stuart said that the world is a very big place and the thief can hide anywhere. But Mr. Phileas Fogg and Mr. Ralph, they disagree. They said no, nowadays there were new roads found in new ways around the world that makes the journey around the world only takes 80 days. And it was written in the newspaper even, the schedule for this nice journey. And as you see the schedule, it's from London to Suez, railway and ship, 7 days. What's the meaning of a railway? Railway means traveling by train. And the ship, of course, means to take the ship. So, we have Suez to Bombay, this is by the ship, 13 days. Bombay to Calcutta, the railway, again with the train, 3 days. Calcutta to Hong Kong with the ship. Hong Kong to Yokohama with a ship. Yokohama to San Francisco with a ship again. San Francisco to New York by train. And New York to London by ship and train. And the total for the days is 80 days exactly to go around the whole world. So Mr. Stewart said yes, 80 days. It's all right to write this in paper. It's okay if they write only, it's only written schedule, written in the newspaper. But actually once you go on the journey, a lot of things can happen, problems can happen. So it's not a must that you are going to finish this journey in 80 days only. Maybe something will happen and make you late. So it's not something that you are sure of. They told Mr. Fogg, why don't you try to go on this journey? Because Mr. Phileas Fogg told him, they can't, Mr. Stewart. They can't only write things in the newspaper that isn't right. So if they said that the journey is 80 days, it sure will take 80 days. So Mr. Stewart told him, okay, let's have a bet, let's have a challenge, and you can go on this journey and see who will be the winner. If you win, and you go around the whole world in only 80 days, we are going to pay you £20,000. But in case you lost, you are going to pay us £20,000. Already Mr. Phileas Fogg told him that he has this amount of money, and he is ready to have a bet with him that he is going to do this journey and finish it on time. But they told him, but please, if something will happen on the journey, you are going to lose all your money. But Mr. Phileas Fogg didn't care about this. He just wanted to show them that he was right. At the bottom of page 5, you have the meaning of a railway. This is the train. It runs on railways, so when he says railway, he means the train. And the bet, this is you bet money, means you have a challenge using money. because you want to win more money. You win when something happens and you lose when you are wrong. So if Mr. Phileas Fogg was right and he finished the journey in 80 days, he will take the money from his friends. But if he loses, his friends are going to take the money from him. Let's go to page 6 and listen together.
In the end, Phileas Fogg's 5 friends took the bet.
Each person will pay you £4,000. That's £20,000. When we see you again, here, in the Reform Club, in 80 days, at the end of your journey round the world,
said Ralph.
or you have to pay us £20,000. That's the bet.
Phileas Fogg thought for a minute. Today is Wednesday, the 2nd of October. So, I have to be back here, in this room, in the Reform Club, on Saturday the 21st of December at 8:45 in the evening. At 7:25, Phileas Fogg said goodnight to his friends and left the Reform Club. At 7:50, he opened the door of his house in Savile Row and went in. "Mr. Fogg? Is that you?" said Passepartout. He looked at the timetable. This was not on the timetable.
We are leaving in 10 minutes for Dover and Calais,
said Phileas Fogg.
We are going round the world.
Passepartout's eyes opened wide, very wide. He opened his arms, then jumped on one leg. "Round the world?" he said.
In 80 days,
said Phileas Fogg.
we have to go now.
Now! But your bags!
I'm not taking any bags. Well, one small bag. We can buy things on the way. Bring down my coat. Wear strong shoes. Move!
At 8 o'clock, Passepartout was ready with a small bag. A quiet life, he thought. Where is my quiet life? Phileas Fogg was ready. He had a book under his arm, Bradshaw's, a railway and ship timetable. He took the bag from Passepartout and put a lot of money into it. Then he gave the bag to Passepartout.
Look after it, he said. There's £20,000 in it.
At the station, Phileas Fogg saw his 5 friends from the Reform Club.
Okay, let's stop here and see. Now Mr. Phileas Fogg has this bet with his friends, and on this night, after he told them that I am going to start my journey today, Wednesday the 2nd of October, and I'm going to be back to the Reform Club on Saturday 21st of December at 8:45. The same, again, the precise character of Mr. Phileas Fogg. How exact he is with his timings. At 7:25 he went back home, and this isn't the normal time when he goes back home. Okay, so Passepartout was surprised that Mr. Phileas Fogg came early. This is not on the schedule. Okay, so Passepartout told him, "Sir, what's going on? Is there something wrong that you came early? This isn't your timetable." He told him, "No, I came because we are going to leave immediately. We are going to leave now because we're going to start a journey around the world in 80 days. And I bet my friends that I'm going to win this challenge and finish this journey on time." So he told him that we have to go now, very quickly. And Passepartout told him, "What about the bags? We didn't arrange any bags." He told him, "Only one small bag, and we're going to buy whatever we need on our journey." Okay, John Passepartout prepared the bag at 8 o'clock, and he was thinking to himself, he was thinking that his life and his work with Mr. Phileas Fogg will be a very quiet life, because he is a very precise man with a certain schedule, nothing to worry about. So it's going to be a very nice and quiet life. But what happened was the totally opposite. Now he is going to go on a journey, and there is a bet, and they have to win. So they are going to face some trouble. So this is not the kind of quiet life that he was aiming at. Mr. Phileas Fogg took the bag from Passepartout, and he put a lot of money inside the bag, and then he gave the money, the bag again to Passepartout, and told him, look after the bag, take care of the bag. There is 20,000 pounds in it. This is the amount of money that if he loses, he is going to pay to his friends. Okay, so he told him, be careful about this money. And they went to the station, and Mr. Phileas Fogg at the station, he saw his friends. They were waiting for him to say goodbye before he starts going on the journey. I want you to look at page 7 now.
You're here to say goodbye? That's kind, he said. I'll have stamps in my passport for each country. You can see them when I come back. We won't look at your passport, said Ralph. You're an Englishman.
At 8:40, Phileas Fogg and Passepartout took their places in the train. And at 8:45, the train started. Some days later, the police at Scotland Yard had a letter from their detective, Detective Fix. Suez, 9th October. To Scotland Yard, London. I am following the bank thief, Phileas Fogg. Send a warrant to Bombay now. Fix. Detective.
Okay, so what happened now is when Mr. Phileas Fogg arrived at the station where he is going to take his train, he found all his friends waiting for him to tell him goodbye before he starts his journey. And he told him, I will have stamps on my passport. The passport, this is like a small notebook where you must have while you're traveling, so that they write in it the countries that you visited. It's already written down. It's when you visit other countries, and the name of your country is going to be written in the in this passport, and the name of the other countries that you visit. Another word is the stamp. What's the meaning of stamp? It's like a sign, like the stamp that you put on your hand, like the stickers. But this stamp to show what are the countries that he went to. So the word stamp, when you arrive in a country, it's written down. You often get a stamp, like a sticker or something done with the ink to show the date on your passport, when the date of when did you go to a certain country. He told them, once I will come back after the 80 days, I will show you my passport, and you're going to see how many countries I visited to make sure that I went on the schedule that was written on the newspaper. But they told him, no, we trust you, you are an Englishman, and an Englishman never lies. So we trust you that if you come on time, we are sure that you followed the same schedule written on the newspaper. At exactly 8:45, the train left, and Mr. Phileas Fogg and Passepartout were on board the train. The last part of this chapter, it's talking about some days later, the police at Scotland Yard, and we said that Scotland Yard, this is the central office of London's police detectives, okay, where all the detectives are working, and they had a letter from one of their detectives. His name is Detective Fix, and he wrote in the letter, Suez, 9th of October, to Scotland Yard, London. So he was in Suez, and he's sending the letter to London. I am following the bank thief Phileas Fogg. So this means that he thinks that Mr. Phileas Fogg is the thief who stole the bank, so he is following Mr. Phileas Fogg. Send a warrant to Bombay now. Fix, detective. What's the meaning of a warrant? A warrant, this is like a permission to catch the thief. Because when the thief is traveling from one country to another, there are certain rules for each country that you have to follow. If you have a warrant, okay, this means that you have a permission to arrest this person even if the rules are different from this. So the warrant, this is the license, the permission that makes you catch any thief in any other country rather than your country. Okay, so he was asking Scotland Yard to send him a warrant so he can arrest Phileas Fogg at Bombay. Okay, by this we have finished our 2 chapters, first 2 chapters from our story. I want you to try to answer the questions that you have here, and we are going to discuss it together next time before we start the other new 2 chapters. Thank you for listening to me and enjoying those 2 chapters, and I hope you love the rest of the story. See you next time, and bye bye.